Right, so good morning. Last day. I hope you had a good discussion also after I left yesterday through remaining cases. So today we will have now an impact assessment workshop this morning at least. The length of that can vary a bit. There also needs to be the ceremony at the end. Exactly not schedule all these components, but in the workshop I think you can take the time you need, and even after the ceremony I'm sure you can continue if you have things left to discuss. But the thing is that so data ethics decision age is the framework with which I would like to use here now. It's a dialogical tool, so it's based on a discussion for evaluating how well a data-related project adheres to ethical principles. So it's a discussion tool, like a structure for discussion, or evaluating any project which has data in it, or processing, data collection, or something like that. It was developed a couple of years back, so 2022 it's been published by Utrecht Data School at Utrecht University. So that's it's Dutch university. So it's pretty new, and I've used it now a couple of times, and I found it quite useful. So it's a toolkit for delimitation and argumentation. So it is the way to discuss these things, but also you can then write down your outcomes. Let's see, if we have time, then if you finish timely, then we can also discuss your outcomes, but that's not like a mandatory part here today. Most important is that you get the opportunity to see, get the feeling of how this works. Oh, this reminds me, I sent Jolly and British yesterday the handouts for this course, so I hope you are, all the slides I had this week, I sent them as PDF files, and so you will receive them. Also this slides. But here. So it has been developed in the field, so in cooperation with in actual real world settings. So it is for users, and users in this case are the ones who develop new or collect data or use data in some sense. So that is the users here, and it has been developed in collaboration, so in the real world setting. It's not just academic. It tries to foster accountability so that the developers actually understand what are the consequences, or all stakeholders understand the consequences. I was just discussing here with one of the students who have been working on engineering stuff, like quite often engineers have this narrow field they are working on. They never have an incentive to look outside. They actually have more incentives to look deep, but this goes the other way. This exactly tries to connect you with the real world consequences of your work. So it's education of the users is a really important part. So you learn about the case. It's not just about the outcomes that the project would be good, but also that the participants in the projects would learn. And it communicates problems, so all the stakeholders, all the participants should see the problems and support project management, so also the leader of the project then understands, gains knowledge from this process. So more like details or like the structure of the process. It's a structured dialogue between all stakeholders. So we would like to have all involved parties involved. I come back to that when we choose our cases which we do. But it's basically a list of questions. So we have here printed out big posters. For each we have groups, and each group will get a poster where all the questions are. And you go through them one by one and discuss anything which comes up. The idea is that, so of course there's lots of questions which you will be unable to answer. They are not straightforward questions. So if you don't find an answer, make a plan of how you find the answer. Who should you talk with? How do you reach those people? How do you come to an answer? So basically, when you would use this in a real world setting, you need those answers. But now, of course, we have only like a simulation, so we cannot get all answers. But make a plan of how you could find what information is needed and who is needed, and what is the process, what are the steps to get to the answer. How now is this form groups of 8 to 10 people. So, hard to know, hard to count how many, perhaps 3 groups or two or three groups. Let's count once we are, I finish this description, perhaps still more people are coming in. Each group should have a chairperson, so one person who is like managing or leading the discussion, or like giving turns, you don't talk at all at the same time. So one of the first questions on the proposal is to identify all stakeholders. So we need. I would like to let's make it like a bit of a theater, so that everyone has a role. For example, one person is the user, some other is the engineer, and so on. That you can get better the empathy for that role, and therefore you can advocate for that stakeholder group. If we have time, we can present the outcomes of each group at the end. But I don't want to put pressure on you to finish on time. So it's more important that you get the feeling of the process. And if you finish, then we have a final presentation at the end of the outcomes. And all this material is available online at the data school. Just if you put data in a search engine, you find this. It's easy to find. So each group should then choose a case to evaluate. So of course they should include speech technology somehow, something about perhaps a speech assistant or like some sort of assistant, and then in definition of that case, it's very important, useful to be very specific. So if you just say that the Android phone speech assistant, it's too vague, it's too abstract. And therefore, actually, I know, last night I thought of a structure which I would propose for this to have. Of course, so there's a speech assistant, so there's some user. User is probably one stakeholder, and or if it's the data collection, of course, then it's the data subjects or the ones who are speaking the data. And then there is the so there should be a service owner. Service, or I propose to have a service owner. So something like, I've been talking about the example of the city of Espoo having migrants. Then the city of Espoo is a service owner. It could be a hospital, it could be a school, university or school or some government agency or Indigo, that kind of flight airline or like some company who wants to do service. But the point is that they are not doing speech kind of tech themselves. They are buying it from a service provider. So service provider would then be kind of big tech company, something like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, or something like that. And then there are, yeah, but we talked, so this is kind of the components that I would like to kind of ask this to kind of contain. So the service owner, which is the introduced thing here. So of course there are then users, friends, and then it can be employees and engineers who are working on this both here and here, whatever feels kind of important in your use case. So that was a bit of guidance on what type of use case it would be. So examples now, which I've used before, like the migrant scenario is one. I've used the example of an old person, so an elderly home, where they could have speech assistants in their home, like their own rooms in elderly care. And then that speech interface could be used for both just whatever speech agents are usually used for, like lights off and call my son, but also for emergencies. So if there's an emergency, kind of, if the old person falls down and can't stand up on his own, he can shout for help. So that is an example I've used before. It can be a case. Yes, be creative. Think of something. And if you need support for choosing a case, then just ask me or some others. Oh yeah, so here's the example case. So what I have used a nursing home for older people, speech interface in private rooms of the residents. Now this is a very Western approach. I don't know if this is applicable to your. I imagine that in the Indian system quite often the elderly live with the families, so that's a different approach. So it might not be applicable here, but so it could then detect screams for help, falling over or other emergency, alarms, nursing staff, and of course then the nursing staff would be one of the stakeholders. But so it is a long list of stakeholders, so the elderly people themselves, so the residents, family, guests, the staff, doctors, cleaning personnel, owner of the facility, service provider, emergency services, labor union, government, interest groups, researchers, and system developers. So there's lots of stakeholders that can be included. Think about which of them are important for your use case. Yes, I think so that's it now. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. So if we do a split into 3 groups, then we have something like 6 or 7 people in each group. I think that's probably all right. So then you probably can get multiple roles. So you would advocate for perhaps that, for example, nursing staff and labor union, that can be one role, both of them. But at least that everyone has a role. If the groups are too large, then someone might not have a role. That's worse. Any questions at this point? The posters then should be then visible for everyone. So arrange yourself around the poster. You can try to put it on. For me, I'm not on desks here, but if you can attach it to a wall, or we have one table here, so we can use that. Oh yeah, that one as well. So arrange yourself around that table. In my experience, I've done this in 2 hours and it was a bit rushed. So it takes time. take the time you need. So any questions? Self-organize in the groups. And posters are here.
Here, in this case, are we trying to solve a problem or just using this data framework, we try to solve a problem?
Yeah, so mitigations are part of the discussion. So if there's a problem, you can try to identify how it can be resolved, but also it can be an open question, so then you would have a plan for how you start to address that. It might not have a solution. It can be impossible, and then you have to stop. Basically, then you can't do that use case. It's entirely possible. So, find groups, organize. I'll bring the posters here. But the others are finished. So we could now start to go a bit hear what you've found out. So we can perhaps start from the group at the back. Let's give them a microphone and someone, yeah, the group at the back starts, and someone please explain someone from the group explain the use case that you have studied. Yeah, focus please. Focus please. So the group at the back, what was your, let's first explain, what was your use case?
Hello everyone. So our use case that we had decided is is a speech technology assistant for home domestic use cases, and our use case defines a home assistant in a domestic home-based environment where it can assist the users using the speech technology, and with the combination of other technology which would include robotics as well to perform different tasks. And for this, we had gone through different questions, and from the different perspectives as well, from ethical perspectives, from the usability perspective as well. And specifically, when we discussed in our group, we started with the algorithms. We started with the source, the data, how it's going to be used, and we identified starting from the algorithms perspective. So you want to go through each of these individual scenarios what we discussed?
So yeah, I'm most interested in what are the, of course everyone has the same questions and same difficulties, but what was the primary difficulties and what were what was hard?
What was hard? Okay. So the main challenge that we did face was deciding on the different issues. So whether we want to aim for building a product better, or do we want to think of making the privacy and other features in place. For example, one of the use cases within the implementation that we were discussing was whether the speech bot should be able to, we are making a speech bot. So the use case is the speech bot, the bot is going to record the human conversations as it happens, and then it is going to store them locally on its own device. Now, when it is going to store all of these user recordings and user conversations, it's also going to store private information, which would include maybe bank statement or any PI, like personally identifiable information, would be included in those recordings. So the ethical point of view here is, should this private information be removed? Right? Now, if we try to work on that from the technological perspective, we see that if we implement something like that, we have to add a different layer of programming, for example, which will first identify what is a PII. Is it going to affect the mechanism, the usability point of view? So that was a difficult decision, and we identified that if we want to think from a different stakeholder perspective, like for example, let's say there's an investor who wants his product to be ready in the market within a month, then we will not have time to implement that feature. We want to focus on only the goals, like how much can we build, how much can we deploy within a month, right? So those are the challenges that we discussed, and then we decided that, okay, if that is going to be the case, then we might have to neglect some of the features for this, and we have to make sure that we encrypt the data, and if we are able to identify it. So rather than, here we made a decision that rather than identifying the information, which would take a significant amount of time, we would encrypt the data, and then based on this encrypted data, we would have a bit of security, and we would maintain this from the transparency perspective as well, that we would be transparent enough for the end customers that we are recording your PII, personal identified information, and it will be encrypted. However, the data will be stored only on the device, and we are not going to upload it to the cloud. And even when it comes to retraining the model from the better perspective, we don't want to, we would only be using for the optimization from the device level itself, rather than sending the data to the cloud and then optimizing it for the, we would not be optimizing it for the other general public from that perspective. So these are some of the thoughts, and then we also discussed from different stakeholders' perspective that it leads to changing the dynamics of the product as a whole. Right,
which stakeholders did you think about?
So the stakeholders from the end user's perspective, like from the end user's perspective, like it would make sense if we are able to help them better. For example, it would be helpful for a person to identify and store private information about a person. Like if a device can remember me, my personal date of birth, right, and help me make suggestions based on that, it would be helpful from my perspective. But from the stakeholder perspective, it would be helpful for maybe from marketing campaign perspective, it would be helpful from them. But we don't want them to be aware of this information, right? So those are the different conflicting questions that we had. We discussed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you focused mostly on the kind of business interest versus the user interests.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good. Do the others have feelings about that? Have microphone ready, so do you have some ideas on, or feelings of what this, or comments, something about this use case? No? This one also. But so did you also talk about, not this slide, but the other slide had like, for example, friends or family or other family who comes to visit? Right. Did you talk in that direction at all?
Yes, we had a brief conversation in that direction as well. So here we also want the model to be biased. For example, where we want the model to be more biased towards the family members rather than having a bias. Now there are multiple levels that we thought. One was the authorization level, that whether who are going to be the authorized users for this device, like whose voice should it listen to first, and based on those commands. So here comes the technology would be the speaker recognition, identify whether the speaker who is giving these commands, is he the actual, how much access does he have over the device, right? So that comes from the access level. Now we can, however, set it to a general audience as well. Like there could be like a life and death situation, for example, where somebody is stuck and the robot may not listen to somebody else from an outsider's perspective, right? From, let's say, a neighbor who has come to help and he's just giving a command to stop the robot which is doing something harmful, right? And he may not listen to that because from his point of view, he's only trained to listen to the commands of the owner, and owner may not be available at that point. So
that's actually a nice kind of conflict of interest there. Any more thoughts?
I want to add another point to this. It's supposed to, we have discussed the same thing. It's supposed to listen to which family member has to give the more priority. For example, I have a family with 4 members, me and my wife and 2 children. So if children's, like the account is linked, the bank account is linked to the somewhere over there. So if I'm doing some transaction, if I pass the password, it should do the transaction. So, but my kid, who's playing the game, he wanted to buy some, he's playing the PUBG or something. He wanted to buy some skin for the game, the gun and all. So if I pass something, can you please do the transaction and all? Then it will do the transaction. So these kind of scenarios also has to be taken care of.
Yes, that's true. Yes. All right, but we don't have much time, so I think so thanks for that group, and we move on to the next group over here in the middle. Pass on the microphone there. Yeah.
We have chosen about speaker recognition using biometric for homes, and here the stakeholders comes like family and guest, owner of security, developer. So like this, and here mainly we have used XAI, which is explainable AI. It makes difficult in understanding the decision making. So it overcomes the trust, accountability, security, and it makes sure it's about adversarial attack detection and all. So it mainly focuses on trust, fairness, accountability, and it makes data interpretable. And testing part.
For software testing, we can go for beta testing. Beta testing is a testing process where, when you directly release it to the users will give their feedback, and it will be difficult to implement the modifications then. So before the final release, you can just release it to the certain group of people and they'll give their feedback, and before the final release, you can implement that. And this process is called beta testing. By this, we can actually, even before the release only, we can implement the desirable modifications and feedbacks which are given from the users. So this is the testing part.
Okay. Questions from others? So, for example, now, stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders?
Residents, family, guests, developers, researchers.
Okay, yes. And how do that interest kind of, what kind of different interests do the stakeholders have?
Only developers and researchers have the access to the data, not the users, because those data are not advisable to expose to the users. But users are, we made clear to the users how our system works. That is where XAI comes, so that user will have a confidence on our product and trust on our product, because we are also showing how inner things works. That is getting into a black box where most of the models or a technology product don't display that. We only display the statistics, like saying these models are performing this, where most of the models highlight only on the performance or the accuracy or efficiency. But nowhere it gives a brief details about how internally things are happening. So giving those explanations using a new concept called explainable AI, the users also will be more confident to whether to opt for that or not. The main challenging part of this product is we are only focusing on speech data of a normal human being. When it comes to disabled person who cannot speak, that is very challenging part. So we need to think how to come, because there could be some family person who is disabled, and our system also should work for that person.
Yeah.
So that is the challenging part we need to address.
Yes. Yes, and then, so good that you mentioned that the disabled people.
Yes.
That's an important user group.
Yes.
And then, of course, in the stakeholder analysis, you need to have a representative for
Yes.
disabled people. Because
Yeah.
we are not at least, I don't see the evidence of the disabled people here.
Yeah.
So we don't understand what they want.
Yes, yeah. So that will be more user friendly.
Yeah.
And people will trust on that system much more actually.
Yeah.
Because it works on everyone.
Yeah, hopefully. All right, questions from others or comments? Yeah, I give you the microphone, yes. Well, we will start first. Always switch off the microphone when you're not speaking.
Just a query on the use case, and it's speaker recognition, is it?
Yes, it's a speaker recognition for a biometric, which can be used for smart homes as well as biometric authentication for the educational institution or the companies.
So will it remember what a family member command by say person?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Command, okay, just a recognition, is it?
Yes, it's a recognition. It's a one-time enrollment for that.
Good. Any other questions? If no other questions, then we have moved the third group here. I think they seem to have a very intense discussion. Thank you. I'm a core host today. Yes, so the third group, use case, please.
We took a use case where we imagined an implementation of a national ID service using voice as a primary biometric and having some other biometrics as well, but voice is the primary biometric. So that's the use case. We wanted so that we can use speech technology on a national scale to identify. It's not only about onboarding and identification, right? It is about, say for example, if I want direct verified services, right? Where a government, I want to take a SIM card where I want to identify you because with using that you can do a lot of activities, right? Or if I want to open a bank account, right? Typically there will be a eKYC that is involved, right?
What is an eKYC?
eKYC is electronic know your customer.
Okay.
Sorry, once again, electronic know your customer will be involved. Both in offline as well as online cases, right? Offline cases, basically like you going to a government regulated institution, right? And want to open an account, for example, right? And if you already have an infrastructure of uniquely identifying you in place, right? You can authenticate using your voice to actually open the account for you, right? And if your voice fails, there are always alternate mechanisms like your OTPs, your secondary biometrics will kick in basically. So that's what we talked about, right? And we talked about, who are the stakeholders? How are we going to protect the data from? Government should be the only one who will be able to identify you, and there are multiple stakeholders, right? There are system integrators, there are system biometric, designers, biometric device manufacturers, and say for example, if the technology is developed by either an internal team or an external team, right? There will be one who actually sees the data, right? You should be having ability to anonymize, pseudo-anonymize, even generalize, right? We have a national ID system here, right? And our national ID system is both psychographic, demographic, as well as biometric. So it's a combination of three basically, right? Generally when those data are present, right, I mean even we discussed about this 2 days ago, right, generally voice leave away a lot of meta information like your age, for example, can guess estimate your height, for example, right? So how are we going to like protect that? Say for example, in the biometric use case, right, even if a database administrator has access to your voice samples, right, is there a way to protect voice samples by replacing voice samples? Say for example, I mean like he has access and he can get money and he can say like, I mean, for this authentication alone, I will replace this voice and then replace with all those other kind of protections are there in place, right? What are the privacy aspects of it, right? I mean like, I mean if I leave a biometric to a national ID and if there are multiple stakeholders involved, how am I going to protect when the electronic know your customer is going to happen with multiple stakeholders? How am I going to like protect that, right? I mean, we discussed about how only, I mean, the base APIs like answering yes or no type of questions, right? I mean, you give a voice template or a cancelable biometric template, right? I only say yes or no. Those kind of protections we talked about, and we talked about who are the other stakeholders, right? I mean, like how they interact. What is the economy it can trigger, right? I mean, in India, I mean, like it is a diverse kind of a platform, right? Where, I mean, there is a state government as well as central government, right? Central government is the, like, I mean, orchestrator. State government is the implementer of these kind of systems, right? And state governments have ways to identify themselves as well. I mean, there are multiple other use cases where state has multiple purpose of issuing IDs basically. And how this national level ID will interact with those kind of systems. Yeah. Those we talked about, and
so this,
inclusivity, right? I mean, like, exactly. That's the main agenda for the overall group. In terms of inclusivity, how we are going to like include deaf and dumb people? Like, because I mean, when you're doing voice biometrics, right? What are the alternate mechanism that is going to be available, and people who are not educated, right? What are the kind of activities we are going to do when they want to do authentication, right? So those are the cases like we talked about spoofing, deepfakes. I mean, how we are going to like protect our application, from a zero-day attack vector perspective. Those we talked about. It's an intense exercise. We talked about a lot of things.
So it went already into very much detail.
Exactly.
Probably hard for the other groups to follow all the level of detail. But at least I see that you have had a very intense discussion. That's the most important thing. But so overall, also for all the groups. So, but first to you, how does this feel? So, what are you like? So I think your microphone. Say again. How did this feel?
How this feel, okay.
Yeah.
Discussion,
yes. Exercise.
It's very useful, and we are able to discuss all, for other projects also. This is very useful for implementing our university for student projects.
Yeah. But I'm most interested in what was hard. So, what was there like difficulties or difficult feelings or the kind of process difficulties?
Yes.
Well, you said that it was intense.
Very intense. I mean, like interesting also because see, like, I'm coming from a different angle for this, right? I mean, see, the major problem with software development is not the development itself, basically. Yeah. I mean, like the process, the unified process people come up with, and everyone's agreement is there, right? Then the software process is very, very predictable. I'm coming from that angle, right? I mean, answering all these questions will also introduce from an RFP level. I mean, from a requirement sourcing. Okay, requirement document. I mean, having like when when people want to do something right, they float out requirement documents basically, right? From a requirement perspective also, the engineers will have a chance to think about most of this stuff rather than being very narrow-minded basically, right? So very incredibly useful.
When we listed out stakeholders, we had not thought about a privacy officer, and when we came to this question number, then we realized that the stakeholder, there needs to be a stakeholder labeled as privacy officer.
Yes, privacy officer is an important role.
Yes, that is something we missed out.
Yeah. All right. We should almost done here, so let's go to that. Also ask here. So how did this feel? Was it difficult or easy or fun or boring? Or actually, I'm more interested in the parts which are it's always nice to hear that something is fun and exciting. I'm interested to hear which parts are not fun or which are hard to approach.
Actually, being an engineer, connecting with ethics and philosophy to science was very difficult.
Yeah.
Because when we think about a practical work, we can't always think philosophically.
Yeah.
Science requires the evidence, can't think ethically and implement. So that was very challenging task. Still, it is a challenging task, however, that is a fact actually.
Yeah. That's why we are here. It's not easy. It would be a pointless course if it would be easy.
Apart from that, it was very useful also, because we learned many aspects when it comes to ethics and all. We usually don't focus much into it, we always focus into technical side. Now we came to we also need to consider all those aspects. That was very beneficial, and we had a great time.
Yes, thank you. And that's kind of also what my overall philosophy with machine learning is that it can do almost anything by now. You just collect data and you can train a model to do that. But should it? Should we do that? That's the question. Feelings from your group. Emotions. What did you feel?
It is, as you said, basically we focus on the technical aspect of a project. So we try to go more deeper into the technical implementation. So we never thought about introducing the privacy or the security into the technology, which is very, very important. So we have to pay primary attention to this aspect of technology because it is an integral part of technology. So technology doesn't include only the implementation, hardware and software. Also it includes the social aspects like security and usability.
And then I'm trying to read that. So that including this then apparently feels a bit new. It's a kind of new domain, and as much difficult. Were there other mixed emotions during the process, like the exercise today? Did you have difficulties somewhere?
So technology will become complete. It becomes 100% complete if we include these aspects also. Then only we can call it as a matured technology or usable technology.
So sorry to push you. I'm trying to hear how did it feel to you or anyone, the emotions you felt during this. Right? Was it mostly exciting or was it boring or
it was very
easy?
No, very nice time. It was very nice.
Pleasurable, The session was more microphone there over there.
The session was more towards the brainstorming. And we are not only seeing with respect to the developer perspective, we just gone as a user, how we supposed to, what will be how I can trust something. So whether if I do this, whether my data will be kept as a private or these are the what is the user experience, how it is going to be. So all this aspect came.
Okay. Good. I think already over lunchtime is now, so I think we have to finish here and then we continue here at 2 o'clock for the final, what do you call it, celebration and that sort of thing. So, thanks. Oh, we have applause also for the first group. We all of that.